Hey guys, Mix here, and in today's video we are not going to be working on the 1974 MGB, but we are going to be working on the 1974 Corvette. So, it has been quite a while since I've done a full dedicated video to this thing, but there's been a lot going on with it, problem-wise, and you guys kind of saw a hint of that when we had to move it when we took this thing out for its first drive. It is making a really bad screeching noise that I believe is the throwout bearing. I throw in a clip now. Headphone users beware. So as you guys saw, that was absolutely brutal, and it's been like that for quite a while. And I mean, as you guys know, really the last thing we did with this was repaint the T-tops, which are still looking great, and we learned from this in order to do the entire car, which we will be doing, but I'm still looking for a shop. That kind of leads to why this thing has been sitting for so long, and that is because I originally wanted to pull out the transmission to look at the clutch and the throwout bearing, which I believe is the issue. So I figured, well, we know we could pull an engine. I mean, we did it on the MG, and it was fairly easy. What if we pulled a V8 instead of a little four-cylinder? Because, I mean, it's basically the same thing, just double the size. There's nothing really to it on these engines. It's fairly straightforward. I mean, it's still a big test, don't get me wrong, but I think we can actually do it. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be pulling the engine on the Corvette, because with summer basically here, I want to be able to drive this thing this summer. So while I have parts coming for the MG to get this on the road this summer, I have some fairly big parts coming, and they are going to take a little bit. So in the meantime, we're going to get this thing all cranked out. I mean, I'm fairly confident that we could get the engine pulled on this fairly quickly. I am getting a late start to today, so I don't think we could get it all cranked out today, but once I get this engine out, what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to rebuild it or nothing like that like the MG, because it runs amazing. The engine is healthy, it doesn't smoke, there's great compression, there's no reason to, but this engine does leak ridiculously. It sends smoke into the cabin from the rear main seal and the valve covers and just the timing cover, everything. So I have a full engine gasket kit on the way, and we're just going to reseal the engine, and we're actually going to clean it up as well and actually repaint it. So this engine is black. You can see back there that it originally had that Chevy GM orange, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing. We're going to be cleaning up this engine and repainting it back to its original colors, that GM orange. And might even get new valve covers or see how well these could clean up. And we're going to get this engine looking spotless, and it should stay that way for quite a while, because we're going to be resealing it, and we won't have that nasty oil buildup that is everywhere all over this engine. So pop the hood on this thing when I go to car shows or whatever this summer. I won't be ashamed, because we're also going to be fixing just all the riggery that came with this car. I mean, there's just a bunch of stuff in here that's just not necessary. So we're going to do our best to clean up this engine bay, and I might actually paint it as well. And then while this engine's out, we will have access to the throwout bearing and the actual clutch itself in case we have to replace that. I still haven't decided if I'm going to order a new clutch yet. I'm going to wait and see how it looks, just because, I mean, it functions fine. I'm just almost certain it's just the throwout bearing making that screeching noise, but we'll just see once we get to that. But what I want to start doing right now is just start getting all of the little accessories, the alternator, the fan belt, the power steering, just everything like that, all the plumbing, the wiring, away from the engine, get the engine just sitting as one on the motor mount and connected to the transmission. And then once we make sure everything is disconnected from the engine, we'll go ahead and get to, you know, the big stuff, the bell housing bolts and the motor mounts. The motor mounts are going to be hard to get to. And one thing I am slightly nervous about is, if we look at these header bolts, they are not looking too hot. They are super rusted. This morning I did spray some Cruel oil on them. I might reapply some more, because if we strip that, oh, that would suck. Guys, with that being said, let's go ahead and get to work and start ripping parts out of this engine to get it ready to come out. Alright, so right now I just have the alternator pulled off, but right now what I need to do is drain the radiator so I can get all of this out of the way. And if we come underneath, there is a little plug right there that I need to unbolt, but this thing holds a lot of coolant. So I just literally went out and bought this just because of this. and it should actually fill this to the brim, and then I'll have my other one that I have, the 10-quart one, to finish it off. Dripping out down there, but there actually wasn't that much coolant in it, like not a lot at all, but I've been squeezing the hoses and stuff trying to get all of it out. I mean, I can see down the radiator and there's nothing in there, and under here it is just dripping out ever so slightly, so I'm just gonna let that hang out there while I go ahead and work up top. And we're gonna begin removing everything holding the radiator in, like the shroud, so we can get all of this out of the way, and then we'll move on to everything else. So guys, as you can see, the radiator is all out along with like the fan. I got the power steering just laying over there, all the belts off. So there's a ton of room up here, and now we're gonna move on to the engine, and I'm just gonna go ahead and just crank this out right away because this is what I dread most, and that is the header bolts. So like I was saying before, I tried to soak them in crow oil, but they just do not look promising. But we're gonna try it anyway, and we'll see what happens. So I just got the headers unbolted, and it was actually like every single bolt was ridiculously loose, but you can see it is off. And like if I actually couldn't even get to a bolt, I would literally just stick my finger down there and just do it by hand. That's how loose they all were, which is pretty crazy. But we were actually moving along pretty quickly. I mean, there's not really much left to it. Basically, the only wires that go to this engine besides the alternator are just the ones that go to the distributor, which are just unplugged right now. But this thing is so simple to work on, it's amazing. Right now I have the fuel lines going to the fuel pump and the carburetor, obviously. Then I just have a little wire for an external temp gauge that was added before I bought this thing. She's just zip tied on there, as you can see. So all of this riggery is going to be going away once we get this engine out and get to cleaning up this whole thing. Alright, so we're making great progress on this engine. Right now, like everything connected to the car from the engine is off. So right now it's just the engine and the transmission, and then obviously just the engine mounts. I'm not going to be able to finish today just because I have something to do and the sun's going down. But what I am going to do with time I have left for today is start unbolting the engine and the transmission. I'm not going to unbolt all of them, but I'll leave like maybe just one or two in, just because I don't want that stress on the transmission to kind of hang, because I'm still waiting for the gasket set to arrive for the engine. So I'll just leave a couple in there just so it's still held up and propped up by the engine itself. And then once it's time to officially pull it out, the remainder of the bell housing bolts and then the two engine mounts, and we should be good. Alright guys, so I just finished up taking out 3 of the bell housing bolts, basically just the top ones. So then tomorrow we'll go ahead and jack up the car and get underneath there, and I have to actually take off one of the wheels, this wheel specifically, to get the jack under there, because you do it a certain way. You can do it for the C3s because the front of the nose is so far away from the engine. And then I also need to take off the hood, but tomorrow this thing will definitely be out as long as everything goes smoothly. So with that being said, I'll catch you guys back tomorrow. Alrighty guys, so we are back here the next day, and what we're just going to go straight off into is jacking up the front of the car so I can get underneath and get to the rest of the bell housing bolts. I was just looking under there before, there's only like 2 left, and just one thing I was just kind of glancing at before was part of the clutch linkage, and it goes into the block, and there's a little bolt, or nut I should say, right down there at that little mount that's on the frame. And I loosened it and I can move it, but I think the engine needs to raise so I can pull it out of the slot. So we're just going to keep our eye on that once it's time to actually start lifting it out, but we'll just see once the time comes. So anyway, with that being said, let's go ahead and get to the car. Alright, so I just finished getting all of the bell housing bolts out, and as you can see, it's starting to get exciting. I got my Harbor Freight engine stand out, which is probably going to be pushed to its max, because I looked it up and this engine weighs about 600 pounds or so. This says that it could go up to 1 ton, but I need the reach, so I'm going to have to put it on ½ ton at least, and hopefully it'll reach to the center of the engine. If it doesn't, then I'm gonna have to get a whole new hoist just for this. But what I want to do is just roll the MG back so we can go ahead and get the hoist moved in here and just start eyeing up how everything's looking. As you guys can see, on ½ ton, this thing does not quite reach where it should hook onto, but I have this, a load leveler, that can somewhat maybe get that extra couple inches that we need. But now I'm also thinking, like, should I just send her on quarter ton? Because this thing is right at around like 500-600 pounds. Quarter ton's 500 pounds. I mean, do I think it could do it? Yes, probably. But we would definitely be maxing out this thing for sure, at least on that level. As you guys can see, we have the 2 engine mounts out from the bottom. The bell housing is unbolted, as you know. I actually took out some of the spark plugs on the side, or actually all of them, because I didn't want them hitting the headers on the way out. But right now, we're just going to try and just kind of separate the engine from the trans and just start lifting this thing out slowly. Hold on. Starting to separate. Come on, girl. Oh, snap. Here we go. Alright guys, so we were actually back here the next day. I had to run as soon as I got that engine out because I had to be somewhere, but as you guys saw, the engine is out and it was pretty easy. I mean, it wasn't too crazy, and that's what I love about working on these old cars, is that it's so straightforward. It was basically exactly the same as the MG, just double the size of the engine, and to be honest, I think it was much easier to take it out. But now that the engine is out, if we take a look down here, there is what I believe to be the culprit, and touched it before, and literally you can see on the bottom on the floor there's one of them, one of the ball bearings from the throwout bearing literally fell out. But now let's see if I can, oh my god, so this is completely, what? Ripped in half. I'm just gonna try and retain all of those, so, oh, got it. So it's not all over the driveway. That is shot. Let's see if I can take out the rest of it. So I just pulled out the rest of the throwout bearing, and as you can see, I am actually standing in the engine bay right now. But this thing was shot which is explaining why it sounded so horrifically bad. So I'm definitely going to get one of these on order ASAP. I actually already have the gasket kit. It just came in today for the engine, but I want to crank everything out in one day for the most part. I want to get the engine on the engine stand. Right now I have it just stored because I can't really get it to where I want to work on it. So I'm basically just going to work on it right out here with the car, but I want to crank that out all in one day. So I want to make sure that I have all the parts on hand. But in the meantime, while I wait for the throwout bearing to come, we will be cleaning up this entire engine bay, getting rid of all the stuff and just all the riggery that was in this car. I mean, I don't even need all of this like AC stuff anymore because I don't even have AC. And then plus, look at this down here. There's a gaping hole right in this box, which I'm pretty sure sends smoke into the cabin. And if I hop out of here real quick, and if we go and take a look at the engine real quick, this thing is absolutely filthy, just caked with oil and dirt all over this thing. So I cannot wait to clean this thing up, get it back to its original orange color, which you can see under there. I actually wonder if the paint is actually in good condition underneath all this crumb. Maybe not. But as I was just looking here at the clutch, there actually seems to be a lot of like clutch material still on these discs. So I really don't think that this clutch is bad because it still functioned perfectly. It was just the throwout bearing that was really, really bad. But we are going to be taking it off anyway to replace the remain seal, so we will inspect it further from there. Because if it's on its way out, we might as well obviously replace it while it's very accessible. But you can see back here, there is just a ton of gasket maker caked around here, and you know, typically you are supposed to put some type of sealant in like the corners of the intakes, but that is just excessive, and it didn't really work because it leaked all the way down and it would burn off. You can see how bad it is on there. That is real bad. Jeez. And then the front is slightly less worse, but there you can see that orange underneath. But I mean, obviously it is still really, really dirty. I'm going to try and find new valve covers. They are actually really expensive, way more expensive than I thought they were. So we'll just have to see about that. And I'm sure we could clean up this intake a lot, or maybe just paint it black or something with some engine enamel. But I just have the engine on the dolly right now. Like I said before, I still need to get it on the engine stand, but we're going to do that all in next video. We're going to handle everything with the engine all in one video. We're going to handle everything with the engine bay, probably all in one video, just because we have rain on the way and I want to get everything all sealed up and stored away, and I'd rather just crank everything out, you know, within one day of each other. Because the engine shouldn't take any longer than one day. We're just resealing it and cleaning it and painting it, which sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. I mean, we rebuilt the MG in like 2 videos, so we could definitely crank out some work. So guys, with that being said, the next video with this thing you can expect is probably going to be cleaning up this engine bay and making it look really, really nice, and just getting rid of all of the junk that we don't need anymore, and just fixing all of like the zip tied stuff on here and just making everything, you know, a little bit cleaner, because that's just not very nice. But anyway guys, with that being said, I'm going to be ending off this video here. Pretty easy video. I mean, I know there's probably a lot of time lapses, but I mean, it was just work to be done and we cranked it out relatively quickly, so I'm super pumped on that. But anyway guys, with that being said, follow my social medias. They will be in the outro of this video. Instagram and Snapchat I use the most. But thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, comment, tell your friends about the channel.